What's up, my friend? Welcome back to another video. So today we're taking a look at a new straight-ahead samples library called Bel Canto Violin. And basically, from the name, you can sort of tell what the approach is to this library. Bel Canto basically means beautiful singing, and I think Trey was going for a more emotional, passionate sort of violin library here. And it's really interesting because this is sort of their first foray into the orchestral side of things, whereas most of the products that straight ahead samples have released prior are all based in the jazz realm. So saxophones, trumpets and trombones, the whole big band, some woodwinds as well. So it's really cool to see them apply the smart delay technology to an orchestral instrument. And we'll take a look in just a second at what this sounds like. But they basically provide all the details here. One of the most important things is that this library is not compatible with the free Kontakt player. So do keep in mind that I think most of their libraries moving forward will be made for the full version of Kontakt. So just be aware of that as you invest into these libraries. You do need the full version of Kontakt. There's a few legato types. Of course, the smart delay feature is still here. You get the basic standard articulations like legato, sustains, and then you get shorts as well, right? And vibrato control sustains as well. Tremolos, harmonics, portamento, performance runs and trills, and stuff like that. And then there's some demo videos and walkthroughs as well. So yeah, let's just kind of take a look at the library itself here. And basically the interface, as you can see here, is pretty simple, which I do enjoy. I'm not a big fan of libraries that have overly complicated GUIs with lots and lots of control. Like this, for example, is a little bit convoluted for me. I'm just looking at all the knobs and stuff available. While it's great to have all these different features, if that's your thing, then it's great to have that flexibility. But for me, I prefer a more simple GUI just like this. You have the name of the instrument, you see the instrument's graphic here, which is kind of cool. Then you see the articulation currently loaded, the attack type, and then we have the different positions here as well, which is pretty neat. So what I'll do first is play through the different articulations. I've also loaded in the condenser mic and the vintage mic just to hear the different mics here. But we'll go through all the articulations, kind of discuss the sound articulations, and then we'll hear the other mics as well. So let's start with the slurred legato here for the ribbon mic. Oh, and I'll make sure it's in real time as well, so we can hear straight out of the box what this sounds like without the smart delay activated. All right, so that's just a quick look at the basic articulations on offer here. So first of all, I just want to say that this instrument plays like a very soloist sort of library, because a lot of these longer articulations, the default programming is sort of set to legato, whereas like basically you have the one note playing, right? And then when you go to the next note, the first note will kind of cut off, allowing the second note to come in. So it sort of feels more melodic that way. Even some of these shorts actually, they kind of allow one note at a time. So basically, this instrument is built for carrying those lead melodic lines, which is pretty interesting. I think the overall sound quality is very pristine, as you come to expect from straight-ahead samples. They put a lot of focus on the close mic so that you get all of the detail and everything. You can scrutinize the sound, the programming, and you don't have to worry about covering anything. You can use this as a soloist library with the sound quality without any worries, which is pretty nice. For the portamento, I kind of took a second to understand how the programming sort of works. So if I have the slurred legato or the regular sustains, and then click the portamento key switch, then the next note I play will have a portamento slide to that next sustained note. But you can see the key switch or the articulation automatically defaults back to the slurred legato. So if you want to force a portamento slide, basically you just you start with your first note, and then if you really want the portamento, you press that key switch, which in this case is that C sharp, and then you get that portamento slide happening. Same thing with these performance trills and runs. If you just select that and play a couple notes by themselves, notice here how the articulation defaults back to the slurred legato as soon as possible. So these are sort of meant to automatically kick in whenever you play a really fast passage, basically. It starts with regular sustains. The faster you play, the more it goes to the runs articulation, and then it goes back to the solo legato. Pretty cool programming there. Very, very smart. And that's one thing I think Straight Ahead Samples takes pride in this library, is just the automatic key switching capabilities here. You can play a passage with really, really fast stuff, and even short notes as well. And then when you turn on Smart Delay, the engine will actually analyze what you've already played, the lengths of the notes, and I'll show you a couple passages here in just a moment. But the different articulations, the way you're playing the notes, the velocities, the lengths of the MIDI notes, everything, and they sort of choose the most appropriate articulations and performances based on your input. So it's pretty cool. Let's have a quick listen to the condenser here, and then the vintage, and then we'll kind of play through these examples, and I'll give a bit of context. So here's the condenser mic. All right. So that's just a quick listen to these mics here. I noticed here when I played really, really fast at the very end there, the engine had a slight lag there going back to the slurred legato, but when I slowed down the run just a little bit, it was able to keep up. So we know that no sample library is perfect, right? There might be libraries that really gel with our personal workflows and the way we approach making music, but the programming always has limits, right? Because it's still a virtual instrument, it's still a machine, it's responding with delay based on what you're doing, the inputs that you're putting in. So there's no surprise that there are maybe a couple little niggles with every sample library. And so yeah, let's kind of get into the passages here. And first of all, I just want to say that I think after experimenting a little bit with this library and massaging these performances, I do think Bel Canto is made for a slower style of performance when it comes to more emotional passages, which makes sense due to the name. Just, beautiful singing. You're not going to have, beautiful singing performances that go really super duper fast with super agility and lots of fast notes and stuff rushing, right? So I wanted to test this violin with one of the pieces that I came up with for my recital last year called Dancing Among the Stars. And what I'll actually do, maybe I'll actually pull it up here so we can hear what that melody sounds like. First, I'll actually play this passage, and then I'll play the real performance to show you what the live version sounds like. But let's have a quick listen to this melody here using just the slurred legato, and then we'll quickly talk through the programming. So here we go. Oh, wait, I have to make sure I turn on the smart delay here as well. And by the way, when you want to use the smart delay, just make sure if you're using the first three patches in this library, that you bring in the smart delay plugin as well. So you go into audio units, straight ahead samples, smart delay offset, and then just choose the stereo plugin there, which just looks like this. You don't have to do anything with it. You just put it in, and as long as it's activated and you have smart delay activated here, I think you have to satisfy both those conditions. Then you might have the smart delay working. So let's have a quick listen to this now. Cool. All right, so let's have a quick listen to the real version of that. All right, here is the piece. I'll just start from the piano part, and then the violin melody will come in. Cool. So we'll stop there. So obviously the live version is much better, right? And as you would come to expect, especially with orchestral instruments, soloists especially, it's really difficult for sample libraries to mock up these instruments in a really convincing way. But it's interesting. I think the smart delay version, there's a liveliness and a musicality to it that I really do enjoy. I think the one thing that makes it seem like a mock-up to me is the fact that the legato transitions feel like they're all bowed transitions. And if you take a look here while this passage is playing, let's make sure you see here. See how all of these transitions, they were notated as bow change. And I'm trying to figure out a way to see if I can force a slurred legato without the bow change, because I think that would make it sound a lot more natural. But because they all sound like bow changes, a violinist wouldn't normally just bow change every single note in a scale, for example, unless they were deliberately trying to do that. So that could be one thing that could make it sound more natural in this case. They also have string crossing legato, which is pretty interesting. That passage sounded okay there. But it's only have this big ascending and descending scale. Sounds a little bit unnatural. And then we have this like double slide there, like sort of like a portamento slide, one after the other. That sounds a little unnatural there. I tried to kind of play around with the velocities and the lengths of the MIDI notes there to try to fix it, but it was a little bit, it didn't quite respond to what I was trying to do there. But that's just a little, very specific little niggle there. If I scroll down a little bit, you can see I laid down a couple key switches as well, because I really wanted to make sure that they were taking care of the exact articulation I wanted. So I think this one specifically, yeah, I was going for a slurred attack. Let's see. and it goes back to the default. And then this one here is just the, that was just the bow change attack, or yeah, that's what they call it there. So I put this bow change one here because I wanted the portamento or the slide to not be there, but it didn't really make a difference. So it's likely that I'm just programming it wrong, but this is just I just want to show you what I kind of did and be completely transparent about it. But so yeah, this example is a little bit more for a faster passage, right? Let's see what happens if we turn off smart delay for a second. If I play just a regular melodic line that's a little bit longer and then turn on smart delay, let's see what happens. All right, there we go. Now I will turn on smart delay. And when I press play here, it's going to automatically scoot back a few beats just to give the engine a bit of room to run. And then let's see what happens. Cool. Yeah, actually a lot better, I think. So you hear the difference there, because I think for these longer sustains, it allows the sustains to really speak, right? Like when you give them a second to really sink into each of the notes, it really allows the performances to really shine through, which is really nice. I would have actually liked the legato transitions to actually be a little bit louder near the end of this passage here. And I'm just taking a look. Do we have a legato volume adjustment here? There's release volume, runs, trills, tuning variation, resonance volume. There's the mix mics there, reverb, vibrato. Yeah, so I'm not seeing like a legato volume slider itself, but I think that could be really cool, just to maybe adjust a couple of the last ones there. I want to show you one more example here. I'm just going to undo that. And this style, I actually think Bel Canto Violin does very well. So I think this one is more of an up-tempo piece. And I'll show you this example really quickly and then show you the real version as well. So this is what it sounds like. Cool. All right, let's hear the live version now. All right, here is the piece. I'll start with a piano intro leading into it, and then you'll hear the melody. There we go. So let's compare one more time to the virtual version. So, I mean, to my ear, that sounds pretty decent. Because I think there's a combination of a couple things. We get the grittiness in the performance because of the automatic key switching happening here with the engine. So I played a bunch of these short notes, as you can see, and the engine interpreted it as a subtle articulation, which ended up really short, and I think suited this really well. Notice here I put in a bunch of key switches though, because I didn't want to leave anything to chance, and I just wanted to make sure that all the articulations I actually wanted to hear were coming in properly. So basically I started with a short note, and then here you can see the mercato. If I highlight this key switch, we can see the mercato there is activated. And then the next key switch would be back to the spiccato here, short note there. Next key switch is the back to the mercato. So anytime I sort of have a long note, I'm usually choosing the mercato just to have a really nice attack and oomph for this melody. And then near the end here, we have this rising passage. That's basically a bunch of slurred legato, and then the last notes of each of these, I think, were coming off as one of these shorts, which is pretty cool. And then again, the very last note was back to the marcato articulation. So it's really interesting because this library affords you a lot of flexibility, right? Just like with the other straight ahead samples libraries, you can either choose to let the engine do its thing completely, and that's the benefit of smart delay, especially I think for the jazz instruments. I think the trombone is severely underrated. A lot of people talk about the Birth of the Trumpet library, which I agree is fantastic, but I think the trombone is slept on a little bit. The Eminent Trombone, I believe it's called. It sounds almost exactly like the real thing. When you use that trombone library in the context of a big band swing number, it sounds fantastic. Atomic Big Band is really cool as well. So it's cool to see straight ahead samples venturing into the orchestral side. While the library is not perfect, I do feel like there are some styles it excels better in for me personally, based on these examples I basically demonstrated here. I think if you take advantage of the different key switches and the way it kind of automatically cycles between them, then the faster passages can do really, really well if you have shorts in there, as well as longer emotional lines. I still have to figure out if you're able to force slurred legato transitions versus bowed ones. I think once I figure that out, if that is an option, that will help these faster melodic lines with all legato sound a little bit more natural. Just a personal thing there that I discovered along the way, but of course, there's always limitations to every library, but there's also a learning curve to libraries as well. So I could just be scratching the tip of the iceberg here, and if you want to check out like the full walkthrough for this library and every functionality it offers to see if it's really worth it for you and suitable for your workflow, check out Straight Ahead Samples video on this, and on their website they have the walkthrough there as well. Trey really goes in depth to show you exactly what this library can do and everything that it offers. So big thanks to Trey for sharing a copy with me. Thank you, Trey. Thank you, Straight Ahead Samples, for doing amazing work as usual. Really, really cool library. Again, it has its own unique applications for me. It's not going to be my go-to violin for every single thing, but I think for these more agile passages with lots of different articulations I need to switch through, I'm much more likely to use this rather than Joshua Bell violin, I think. Might come off as a surprise, but I find myself sometimes struggling with the amount of functionality and availability in the articulations and everything that Joshua Bell violin offers. It's a wonderful library, don't get me wrong, but there's just so much work you have to put into it to really craft the performance you're looking for. This one, with the smart delay technology combined with the automatic key switching and the way it works, I can get a more convincing performance a lot faster from what I've felt so far. So I think that's a big, big plus for this as well. Anyway, I don't want to ramble too long. I hope this gave you a little bit of an insight into what this library kind of does and what it sounds like. And if you want to check out my sample library buyer's guide to take a look at all the libraries I use on a regular basis, you can check that out down below. I've included all the libraries there with clickable links to the actual libraries if you want to pick them up. And then also I've included the utilities, like how I use those libraries, the pricing, so you know how much goes into those, and all of that stuff is included and is completely free. So if you want to check it out down below, it's the first link in the description, and you can grab it as my gift to you for checking out this video today. I really appreciate you watching. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.